It's kind of tricky because it needs a collective agreement to say, okay, let's kill this project. Okay, sometimes you may have, okay, let me give you one example. There was, there was one part of a project initiated by one party. When the power changed, the other party, they say, we don't see a priority here. So what they put is, they put it on the back burner. They're not going to kill, and they say that let it die its natural death. Okay? So now people start quietly leaving the project because it has no priority, no funding, and nothing. You're going to stay there. So there are different areas. It depends on, but obviously is there the, what we call them the system owners. They are also stakeholders, or the executive directors, they actually kill the project. So it depends on, and then it could be killed in the initial phase, or somewhere in the middle, or even toward the end. If they, if they think that it's something which no value, they actually kill it. So here, let me show you here. There is a collapse.com. I just pulled that from the net, and 14 big government programs that failed, and it's costing you, $2.6 trillion, and then it goes on. Cost of and those projects, okay. They may give, no child left behind, the Medicare, immigration reform. Well, this is kind of a little bit of political, but you may probably see it in a technical way that there are many projects that, from the project management point of view, they just killed because they are not conforming with either the requirements or the qualification. All right, so controlling the scope, that's the reason why you need to have a stage gates in every part of your project to control. It ensures that the scope baseline is maintained throughout the project. Ensure all requested changes and recommended corrective and preventive action is going. You remember part of that 90% time a project manager spending? A good chunk of that time is spending in control meetings. There are validation meetings. There are integrated project team meetings that you go there and then you actually do the health of a project. Like I worked in 3 agencies, and all of them, they have their own way of reporting the health of the project. So they usually do a traffic light tile where they, in your report, they show you this is green, and then the next one is red, and there is yellow. So for your senior manager, you have to come back with a weekly report, say that, okay, my project is green, means everything is fine. You are on budget, you are on good costs, and then you are also in quality. If something if you are in yellow, you are in a borderline. If it's red, that's something you have to do something about it. So that's part of the control. So you're going to control your scope by talking to your developers. Because if I say to my management, okay, we're going to excavate that story in that building in 20 days. Okay, now by day 10 and 11, there is rain day in and day out. That's affecting your project. You have to go back and then discuss and see. Later on, we're going to discuss crashing, labeling, and different type of techniques where you can bring your project back to track if you are losing some of the schedules. And that was like a real technique, instead of putting 1 person, you're going to put 2-3 person on that. And that's what's called crashing. You crash the system, not you actually crash it, but crashing project management is you add more resource so that you expedite the delivery. Or sometimes you may have project, labeling. You bring other people from one area to the other one. So there are different techniques. That's how you control. As a PM, you can, okay, this task is a little bit ahead, so I have to pull 2 resources and then put them here so that they can, speed the other one. So you guys do the same thing, yes, in terms of allocating resources. Okay, so that's why you use various tools and techniques, including variance analysis, to determine the cause and degree of difference between the baseline and the actual performance. We have so many fancy words in costs. It's called EVM. I don't know if you have heard about that. No, earned value management.
Yeah.
EVM is earned value management, means it's by itself a science that has been used by the banks, by the insurance, and they want to know exactly how much of your dollar worth your work, and you're going to start controlling that with the schedule. So we're going to discuss that.
EVM stand for?
EVM, with M like Martha, earned value management.
Earned
Value management system. So
to say one thing to add on the baseline thing. Normally in projects, whether small or big, when you start, you define your baseline. Usually, for example, in my kind of project, what we do is you hire a consultant to do the baseline survey. So you agree on that baseline survey. So that is a document.
Yeah.
Now, by the time when you finish the project, still you are required, for example, I work on donor funded projects. So your donor expects you to bring independent consultants. You can't evaluate your own project. Now, the consultants, what they do is, they evaluate your project against your baseline. That is why always when you have a change in the baseline, as a project management, you have to document it. Whatever variations, you need to get, you need to get, validation and acceptance by your, client. So the client has to agree on every bit of a change. Otherwise, you hire independent consultant last minute, then, okay. So the baseline is talks something and your project is something else. So to avoid that as a project management, you have to stick to the baseline, and if there is a change, you have to put those changes at the right time.
yeah, you remember what Yaman said during his introduction? The reason why he's taking this class is because he could have taught this class. You want to get that PMP next to his name. So the good thing about the class is that when we have a two-way, Daniel is bringing good examples, Yaman is bringing good examples, Worko is bringing good examples. In that case, you relate what is going on in the real world into the actual area, and this is a topic of discussion for a project, because that is the scope. That's pretty much the center of your project. Because if you don't know that scope, if you don't validate that scope, if you don't control that scope. So now, what Yaman said is an independent contractors. In IT world, we call them IVNV, Independent Verification and Validation Team. And because remember, when independent verification and verification and validation.
And validation.
Yes.
Where is it on the page?
No, it's not in the page. It's somewhere here in the area. So that is where that's where you get. So because remember, you hire a third party because not only that you trust the contractor, but it's always to have a third voice, because the contractor may say something you may not have an expert inside in the house to validate that. So what do? You hire a consultant. And then you take that document and say, oh, by the way, they delivered this as a baseline survey. Can you validate that? They go through the whole task and then they parse it line by line. They say, well, there's an issue here. There's an issue there. So the reason for that is you want to cover your back. As a PM, you don't want to have that. You know, the reason why that big project failed was there was no controlling mechanism. And if there is no controlling mechanism in place, guess what? Everybody writes a check, everybody does what they do, and at the end of the day, you are the one who's get blamed. That's why it says that you use those variance analysis and the different types of activities there.
Can you go over the earned value management? Is that a checks and balance system to make sure that fiscally you're on track?
Okay. I'm sure.
What's the difference between earned value management?
What's the difference between EVM?
Independent verification.
Oh, okay.
Verification,
And validation.
How does it differ between earned value management?
Okay, earned value management is how it's a controlling mechanism to check your plan is going according to what you said, to check if your if your cost is properly allocated, and yeah. And the other one is the independent verification and validation is it's just another pair of eyes